Switzerland sits at the heart of Europe. It is a small country, roughly 41,000 square kilometers, about half the size of Scotland. But within that space, it holds some of the most dramatic landscapes on the continent. The Alps run through the southern half of the country, a wall of rock, ice, and snow that includes some of the highest peaks in Europe. North of the Alps, a plateau of rolling farmland, forests, and river valleys connects the major cities. And along the northwestern border, the Jura Mountains, older, gentler, and covered in forest, form a long, curving ridge of limestone. Despite being one of the most densely populated countries in Europe, Switzerland is remarkably wild. Roughly 1/3 of the country is forest. Over 1,500 lakes fill the valleys, most of them carved by glaciers during the last ice age. More than 1,400 glaciers still cling to the high peaks, though they are retreating faster than at any point in recorded history. The country's geography is defined by altitude. In the space of a few kilometers, you can move from vineyards and Mediterranean vegetation on the warm southern slopes to permanent ice and snow at the summit. Each altitude zone has its own climate, its own plants, and its own animals. It is a vertical country. Everything is stacked on top of everything else. This compression is what makes Switzerland extraordinary. The distance from the lowest point, Lac Maggiore, at 193 meters above sea level, to the highest, the Dufour-Spitze on Monte Rosa, at 4,634 meters, is only about 60 kilometers as the crow flies. Within that distance, you pass through almost every ecosystem found in Europe, from temperate lowland to high Arctic. There are wolves here, lynx, golden eagles, ibex on the highest ridges, marmots in the meadows, bearded vultures circling over glaciers. And all of it exists within a country smaller than many American states, surrounded by motorways, railways, and 8 million people. This is a landscape shaped by ice, altitude, and time. And it is changing faster now than it has in thousands of years. The Swiss Alps are not the tallest mountains on Earth, but they may be the most recognizable. Their peaks are sharp, exposed, and dramatic, shaped not by volcanic eruption, but by millions of years of tectonic collision and glacial erosion. "200 million years ago, the rock that now forms the summit of the Matterhorn was at the bottom of an ocean. The collision of the African and Eurasian tectonic plates pushed it upward, folding, cracking, and lifting it to nearly 4,500 meters. Then the ice ages came, and glaciers carved the rest, sharpening the ridges, deepening the valleys, polishing the rock. The Matterhorn is the most famous mountain in Switzerland, and possibly the most recognizable mountain on Earth. At 4,478 meters, it rises above the village of Zermatt as an almost perfect pyramid, 4 steep faces, 4 sharp ridges, and a summit that is rarely free of cloud. It stands somewhat apart from the surrounding peaks, which gives it a solitary, monumental quality. From certain angles, it barely looks real. It was the last of the great Alpine peaks to be climbed. North of the Matterhorn, in the Bernese Oberland, 3 peaks dominate the skyline: the Eiger, the Mönch, and the Jungfrau. The Eiger is the most notorious. Its north face, the Nordwand, is a vertical wall of limestone and ice nearly 1,800 meters high. It was not successfully climbed until 1938, and the attempts that failed before that, several of them fatal, earned it the nickname Mordwand, the murder wall. Even today, it is considered one of the most challenging climbs in the Alps. The Jungfrau, at 4,158 meters, is the highest of the 3 and one of the most prominent peaks in the Bernese Oberland. Its name means young woman or maiden, and its snow-covered summit is visible from long distances across the Swiss plateau. The Mönch, the monk, sits between the two, less famous but no less impressive. Below these peaks, the valleys drop steeply. Grindelwald sits beneath the north face of the Eiger, a village that has been at the center of Alpine tourism for over 2 centuries. The Lauterbrunnen Valley, a few kilometers to the west, is a deep, U-shaped glacial valley with 72 waterfalls cascading down its near vertical walls. Staubach Falls, the most famous of them, drops nearly 300 meters, a ribbon of white water that disintegrates into mist before it reaches the valley floor. Further south, near Zermatt, the Gorner Glacier and the Monte Rosa Massif form the highest part of Switzerland. The Dufourspitze, the summit of Monte Rosa, reaches 4,634 meters, the highest point in the country and the second highest in the Alps after Mont Blanc. The glaciers here are enormous, though they are shrinking. The Gorner Glacier, once over 14 kilometers long, has retreated significantly in the last century. In the Eastern Alps, the Engadin Valley, one of the highest inhabited valleys in Europe at around 1,800 meters, is framed by peaks including Piz Bernina at 4,049 meters, the most easterly 4,000er in the Alps. The light in the Engadin is remarkable. Dry, thin air at altitude creates a clarity and intensity that painters and photographers have been trying to capture for over 100 years. The valley receives over 300 days of sunshine a year, more than almost anywhere else in Switzerland. These high mountains are not empty, they are habitat. The Alpine ibex is the animal most closely associated with the Swiss Alps. It is a large, muscular wild goat with long, curved, ridged horns that can exceed a meter in length. Males can weigh over 100 kilograms. They navigate near vertical rock faces at altitudes above 3,000 meters with an ease that seems impossible for an animal of their size. Their hooves are specially adapted, hard outer edges for gripping rock, and soft, flexible inner pads that provide traction on smooth surfaces. The ibex was hunted to near extinction by the 19th century. By the early 1800s, fewer than 100 survived in the wild, all of them in the Gran Paradiso region of Italy, just across the border. A careful, decades-long program of breeding and reintroduction brought them back. Today, roughly 17,000 live across the Swiss Alps. It is one of the great conservation success stories of European wildlife. Golden eagles patrol the valleys and ridgelines. They are the apex predator of the high Alps, powerful, fast, and with eyesight so sharp they can spot a marmot from 2 kilometers away. The bearded vulture, the lammergeier, is an even more dramatic bird. It has a wingspan of nearly 3 meters, a wedge-shaped tail, and a face framed by dark feathers that give it a fierce, almost prehistoric appearance. It was hunted to extinction in Switzerland in the early 20th century. The last one was shot in 1913. A reintroduction program begun in 1986 has slowly brought it back. Today, several dozen breeding pairs live in the Swiss Alps. The bearded vulture feeds primarily on bones. It carries large bones to great heights, sometimes over 100 meters, and drops them onto flat rocks below, shattering them to access the marrow inside. It is the only bird in the world that feeds this way. Watching a bearded vulture carry a bone aloft and release it is one of the more extraordinary sights in alpine wildlife. Higher still, on the snowfields near the glaciers, the Alpine chamois, a small, sleek, glossy black bird with a bright yellow beak, thrives at altitudes where almost nothing else can survive. Flocks of them are often seen near mountain huts and summit stations. Riding the updrafts with remarkable agility, they have been recorded at altitudes above 8,000 meters on Himalayan expeditions, higher than any other bird. The rock ptarmigan, like its Japanese relative, changes plumage with the seasons, mottled brown in summer, pure white in winter. It lives above the tree line and is superbly camouflaged in both seasons. Finding one requires patience and very sharp eyes. The Alpine marmot is the social animal of the high meadows. It lives in family groups in burrow systems that can be used for decades. Marmots are stocky, ground-dwelling rodents about the size of a large cat, and they are constantly alert. When one spots a potential threat, an eagle, a fox, a human, it stands upright and gives a sharp, piercing whistle that carries across the mountainside. Every marmot within earshot dives for its burrow. Switzerland's landscape was shaped by ice. During the last ice age, which ended roughly 12,000 years ago, glaciers covered almost the entire country. They flowed down from the mountains, grinding into the bedrock, carving the deep U-shaped valleys that now hold the lakes, and pushing enormous quantities of rock and soil ahead of them. When the glaciers retreated, they left behind the landscape that Switzerland has today. The valleys, the moraines, the flat-bottomed basins, the thousands of lakes. Today, more than 1,400 glaciers remain in the Swiss Alps. They are remnants of that ice age, still grinding, still flowing, still shaping the rock. But they are much smaller than they were, and they are getting smaller fast. The Larches Glacier is the largest and longest glacier in the Alps. It stretches for over 20 kilometers through the Bernese Oberland, fed by snowfields on the flanks of the Jungfrau and the Mönch. From above, it looks like a frozen river, which in a sense it is. The ice moves slowly, under its own weight, flowing downhill at a rate of about 200 meters per year at its center. It holds an estimated 11 billion tons of ice, but the Larch is shrinking. In the last century alone, it has lost over 3 kilometers in length and thinned by several hundred meters in places. The retreat is accelerating. What took thousands of years to build is being lost within generations. Scientists estimate that most of Switzerland's glaciers will be gone by the end of this century. The Rhone Glacier in the canton of Valais is one of the most visible examples of this retreat. It was once one of the great tourist attractions of Switzerland. Visitors in the 19th century walked through tunnels carved into the ice. Today, the glacier has pulled back so far that the tunnels have to be recarved each year, and the ice is covered in white blankets during summer in a desperate attempt to slow the melting. The Gorner Glacier near Zermatt, the Morteratsch Glacier in the Engadin, the Trift Glacier in the Bernese Oberland, all of them are retreating. At Morteratsch, markers along the trail from the car park show the position of the glacier's snout in different years. The distances between the markers are getting larger. Each year, there is more rock and less ice. The meltwater from these glaciers feeds the rivers of Europe. The Rhine, which flows north to the North Sea, begins in the Swiss Alps. The Rhone, which flows west to the Mediterranean, begins at the Rhone Glacier. The Inn, a tributary of the Danube, begins in the Engadin. Switzerland is the water tower of Europe, and that tower depends on ice that is disappearing. Below the glaciers, the valleys are extraordinary. Lauterbrunnen is one of the deepest valleys in the Alps. Its walls rise nearly vertically for over 300 meters on either side, and 72 waterfalls pour over the edges. Staubach Falls, at the head of the valley, is the most famous. But Trümmelbach Falls may be more impressive. A series of 10 glacier-fed waterfalls inside the mountain itself, accessed through tunnels and staircases carved into the rock. The water carries 20,000 tons of sediment per year down from the glaciers above. The Engadin Valley in the canton of Graubünden is different. Wide, open, high, and flooded with light. At roughly 1,800 meters, it is one of the highest permanently inhabited valleys in Europe. The air is dry and thin. The sky is often a deep, intense blue. The valley floor is covered in larch forest and alpine meadow, and the peaks on either side are snow-capped for much of the year. It has a quality of stillness that is hard to find elsewhere in Switzerland. Grindelwald, beneath the Eiger, sits in a dramatic bowl surrounded by peaks and glaciers. Two glacier valleys, the upper and lower Grindelwald glaciers, once extended into the village itself. Today they have retreated far up the mountainside, and the land they left behind is still raw, loose rock, thin soil, and newly established vegetation slowly reclaiming what the ice gave up. Switzerland has over 1,500 lakes. Most of them were carved by glaciers during the last ice age. The same glaciers that dug the valleys. When the ice retreated, water filled the basins it had left behind. The result is a country studded with lakes of extraordinary clarity and color, many of them framed by mountains that rise steeply from the water's edge. Lake Geneva, Lac Léman, is the largest lake in Western Europe. It stretches for over 70 kilometers along the border between Switzerland and France, and its surface covers nearly 600 square kilometers. The city of Geneva sits at its western end. Lausanne, Montreux, and Vevey line its northern shore. The southern shore belongs to France. The lake is deep, over 300 meters at its deepest point, and its water comes primarily from the Rhône, which enters at the eastern end, carrying glacial meltwater from the Valais Mountains. This gives the water a distinctive milky blue-green color, caused by fine particles of rock flour suspended in the current. On the northern shore above Lausanne, the Lavaux vineyards step down the hillside toward the lake in terraces that have been cultivated since at least the 12th century. UNESCO designated them a World Heritage Site. The terraces face south across the lake toward the peaks of the Swiss Alps on the far side. In autumn, the vines turn gold and copper, and the reflection of the mountains in the lake below completes the picture. Lake Lucerne, Vierwaldstättersee, the lake of the 4 forested cantons, is more complex in shape. It has multiple arms that reach into the surrounding mountains, giving it an irregular, fjord-like quality. The city of Lucerne sits at its northwestern outlet, where the Reuss River flows out beneath a series of medieval bridges. Mount Pilatus rises to the south. Mount Rigi, once called the Queen of the Mountains, to the northeast. The water is deep and clear, and the mountains around it are steep enough that the lake feels enclosed, almost hidden, despite being one of the most visited places in the country. In the Bernese Oberland, Lake Brienz and Lake Thun sit end to end in the same glacial valley, separated by the town of Interlaken, literally between the lakes. Lake Brienz is famous for its color. The water is an intense, vivid turquoise, almost unnaturally bright, caused by glacial sediment from the Aar River and the Giesbach Falls. On sunny days, the color is so saturated that photographs of it are routinely accused of being edited. They are not. The lake simply looks like that. Lake Thun is larger and deeper, and its color is softer, a clear greenish blue. The Oberhofen and Spiez castles sit on its shores, backed by the peaks of the Bernese Oberland. In clear weather, the Eiger, Mönch and Jungfrau are visible from the northern shore. Higher in the mountains, the lakes become smaller, more remote, and often more beautiful. Oeschinen Lake, above Kandersteg, sits in a natural amphitheater surrounded by cliffs and peaks on 3 sides. The water is fed by snowmelt and small waterfalls that cascade down the rock walls. It is accessible only by foot or cable car, and its surface reflects the mountains with a clarity that is almost perfect. Blausee, Blue Lake, is tiny, barely 100 meters across, but its water is an extraordinary shade of turquoise blue, so clear that the bottom is visible at depths of over 12 meters. It is fed by underground springs, and the temperature barely changes year-round. The color comes from the limestone through which the water filters. Bachalpsee, above Grindelwald, sits at 2,265 meters and offers a reflection of the Wetterhorn and Schreckhorn peaks that is among the most photographed views in Switzerland. In summer, the meadows around it are filled with wildflowers. In winter, it freezes solid and disappears under snow. These lakes are not just scenery, they are ecosystems. In the lowlands, the European beaver has returned. It was hunted to extinction in Switzerland in the 19th century, but reintroduction programs beginning in the 1950s have been successful. Today, several thousand beavers live along the rivers and wetlands of the Swiss plateau. They build dams, create ponds, and reshape the waterways around them, engineering the landscape in ways that benefit dozens of other species. A third of Switzerland is covered in forest. This is a higher proportion than most people expect from a country famous for its mountains, meadows, and lakes. But the forests are there, on every slope below the tree line, in every valley, across every mountain range, and they are among the most ecologically important habitats in the country. The tree line in Switzerland sits at roughly 2,000 to 2,300 meters, depending on the aspect and the local climate. Below it, the forests are dense, dark, and diverse. Above it, the landscape opens into alpine meadow and bare rock. The transition zone between the two, where the trees thin out and become stunted, twisted by wind and cold, is called the Kampf zone, the battle zone, and it is one of the most dynamic habitats in the Alps. The Swiss National Park in the Engadin Valley, near the Italian border, is the oldest national park in the Alps. It was established in 1914, making it one of the oldest in Europe. It covers 170 square kilometers of mountain forest, alpine meadow, and bare rock, and it has been left almost entirely untouched since its founding. No roads cross it, no livestock graze in it, no trees are cut. It is as close to genuine wilderness as you will find in a country this densely populated. The forests in the park are primarily stone pine and larch at higher elevations and spruce lower down. The stone pine is an extraordinary tree, slow-growing, gnarled, and incredibly tough. It can survive at altitudes above 2,500 meters, in conditions of extreme cold, wind, and thin soil. Its seeds are dispersed by a single bird. The spotted nutcracker, which caches thousands of seeds every autumn and fails to recover a significant proportion of them, effectively planting the next generation of trees. The Jura Mountains, along Switzerland's northwestern border with France, are entirely different. These are older mountains, limestone ridges pushed up from an ancient seabed, and they are covered in mixed forest of beech, fir, and spruce. The terrain is gentler than the Alps, more rolling, and the forest feels different, denser, darker, quieter. In spring, the forest floor is covered in wild garlic, filling the air with a sharp, pungent smell. In autumn, the beech trees turn a deep copper bronze that glows when the light is low. One of the most dramatic features of the Jura is the Creux du Vin, a natural rock amphitheater nearly 1,400 meters wide and 200 meters deep, carved by erosion over millions of years. The walls are vertical limestone, and the forest below is almost untouched. Ibex have been reintroduced to the cliffs here, and they can sometimes be seen standing on the rim, silhouetted against the sky. In the Valais, the Larch forest sits on the slopes above the Larch Glacier. It is the highest pine forest in Europe, growing at altitudes between 1,800 and 2,200 meters. The trees, primarily Arola pine, a close relative of the stone pine, are widely spaced, and the forest has an open, park-like quality that is unusual in the Alps. The light filters through the branches and onto a floor of bilberry and heather. It is a protected area, and very few people visit it. Nearby, the Finnwald, the Finn forest, is one of the largest pine forests in the Alps. It sits on the valley floor of the Upper Rhone, in a dry, warm microclimate that is more Mediterranean than Alpine. Scots pine dominates, and the forest floor is dry and rocky. It is an important habitat for reptiles, insects, and birds that are uncommon elsewhere in Switzerland. These forests support a remarkable range of wildlife. The Eurasian lynx is the largest cat in Europe. It was hunted to extinction in Switzerland in the early 20th century, but a reintroduction program in the 1970s released several individuals in the Jura and the Bernese Oberland. The population has grown slowly. Today, an estimated 150 to 200 lynx live in Switzerland. They are solitary, nocturnal, and extremely difficult to see. Most evidence of their presence comes from camera traps and the remains of their prey, primarily roe deer and chamois. The lynx is a true forest animal. It hunts by ambush, using its spotted coat as camouflage among the trees, stalking within a few meters of its prey before attacking in a short, explosive rush. It kills with a bite to the throat. A single lynx needs a territory of 100 to 300 square kilometers, which means the Swiss population is limited by the amount of suitable forest available. Red deer are the largest wild herbivores in Switzerland. The males can weigh over 200 kilograms and carry antlers that span over a meter. They were hunted to extinction in most of Switzerland by the 19th century, but populations have recovered, particularly in the Engadin and the Swiss National Park, where they are now common. In summer, they graze in the high meadows. In autumn, the rut begins, stags bellowing in the valleys, their roars echoing off the mountains, competing for access to females in dramatic, sometimes violent contests. Roe deer are smaller, more delicate, and far more numerous. They live throughout the country's forests, from the lowlands to the tree line. They are shy, solitary animals, most often seen at dawn or dusk at the edges of clearings. Wild boar have returned to Switzerland in recent decades, spreading from populations in France and Germany. They are powerful, adaptable animals that root through the forest floor for tubers, insects, and fungi. They are most common in the Jura and the lowland forests of the Swiss plateau. The red fox is found everywhere, from city parks to mountain forests. It is one of the most adaptable mammals in Europe, equally comfortable hunting voles in an alpine meadow and raiding rubbish bins in Zurich. In the forests of the Jura and the Alps, the black woodpecker, the largest woodpecker in Europe, hammers on dead trees with a force that can be heard hundreds of meters away. It is a striking bird, entirely black with a bright red cap, and the holes it excavates in trees are large enough to be used by other species, including Tengmalm's owl. a small, secretive nocturnal owl that nests in abandoned woodpecker holes. The capercaillie, the largest grouse in Europe, lives in the high conifer forests. The male is an enormous, dark bird, over a meter long, with a fanned tail and a red eye patch. In spring, it performs an elaborate courtship display, puffing up its chest, fanning its tail, throwing back its head, and producing a series of clicks, pops, and grinding sounds that sound more mechanical than avian. It is an extraordinary performance, and it is rare to witness. And the species is now considered vulnerable. The red squirrel is common throughout Swiss forests, a small, bright, tufted-eared animal that moves through the canopy with nervous energy. Unlike in Britain, where the introduced grey squirrel has displaced the native red, Switzerland's red squirrels face no such competition. The European pine marten, a slender chocolate-brown predator with a cream-colored throat patch, hunts in the canopy and on the forest floor. It is agile enough to chase squirrels through the treetops and strong enough to kill hares on the ground. And on the forest floor, under fallen logs and in damp hollows, the fire salamander lives. It is unmistakable, black with bright yellow spots or stripes, a warning to predators that its skin produces toxins. It emerges after rain, moving slowly through the leaf litter, and it can live for over 20 years. Summer in the Swiss Alps is short and intense. At high altitudes, it lasts only 3 or 4 months, from late May or June, when the snow finally melts, to September or October, when the first frosts return. In that narrow window, the mountains come alive. The most immediate change is the wildflowers. As the snow retreats up the slopes, the meadows below it erupt in color. Gentians, deep electric blue, appear first, sometimes pushing through the last patches of snow. Then come the Alpine roses, bright pink, covering entire hillsides. At their peak, the meadows above the tree line contain more species of wildflower per square meter than almost any other habitat in Europe. The bloom is intense, concentrated into a few weeks, and it attracts an equally intense concentration of insects, bees, butterflies, hoverflies, and beetles, all racing to pollinate and reproduce before the cold returns. The Apollo butterfly is one of the most beautiful. It is large, white, with translucent wings marked by distinctive red and black spots. It flies slowly over the high meadows, nectaring on thistles and scabious. It is found only at altitude, typically above 1,500 meters, and its populations are declining across Europe. In Switzerland, it is still relatively common in the right habitat, but it is sensitive to changes in grazing and land use. In the meadows below the peaks, Alpine marmots are at their most active. They spend the summer feeding, building fat reserves, and raising their young. The pups emerge from the burrows in June or July, small, curious, and immediately at risk from golden eagles, foxes, and stoats. The adults take turns standing guard, and their alarm whistles punctuate the summer air like clockwork. The whistle is so reliable as a warning system that other animals, ibex, chamois, even birds, respond to it. This is also the season of transhumance, the annual movement of cattle from the lowland farms to the high alpine pastures. It is one of the oldest agricultural traditions in Europe, practiced in Switzerland for over 1,000 years. In late May or June, farmers lead their herds up the mountain paths to to grazing areas above the tree line where the grass is rich, short-lived, and intensely nutritious. The cows wear large bells. The sound is iconic, carrying across the valleys and meadows all summer. The cattle stay on the high pastures for 3 or 4 months, tended by farmers who live in simple alpine huts. The milk is used to make cheese. Some of the most famous cheeses in the world, including Gruyere, Appenzeller, and various Alpcase varieties, are products of this summer grazing. In September, the cows are brought back down in a festival called the Alpabzug, or des Alpes, decorated with flowers and ribbons. The high pastures are not just farmland. They are managed ecosystems. The grazing prevents the meadows from becoming overgrown with scrub, maintaining the open, flower-rich habitat that supports insects, birds, and small mammals. Without grazing, many of these meadows would eventually become forest. In the valleys, Grindelwald, Lauterbrunnen, the Engadin, Appenzell, summer brings long days and warm temperatures. The meltwater rivers run at full power, carrying glacial sediment that turns the water milky white or turquoise. Waterfalls are at their most impressive. The Staubach Falls in Lauterbrunnen, the Giersbach Falls above Lake Brienz, the Reichenbach Falls near Meiringen. All of them are fed by snowmelt, and in June and July, they are at peak volume. But summer in the mountains is not always gentle. By afternoon on many summer days, the heat of the valleys rises and meets the cooler air at altitude, and thunderstorms build with remarkable speed. The clouds pile up over the peaks, dark, towering, charged with energy, and the storms that follow can be violent. Lightning strikes the ridges. Thunder echoes between the valley walls, amplified by the rock. Rain falls in sheets, and the temperature drops 10 degrees in minutes. These storms are dangerous for hikers and climbers, and they are a regular feature of alpine summer. But they are also beautiful, dramatic skyscapes of black cloud and white light, with rain curtains sweeping across the valleys and rainbow arcs appearing as the sun breaks through. Above the tree line, Alpine accenters, small, inconspicuous brown birds, hop among the rocks, feeding on insects and seeds. They live at higher altitudes than almost any other European songbird, and they are often seen near mountain huts and summit stations. The cuckoo calls from the forests below, its two-note call one of the defining sounds of European spring and early summer. Swifts scream over the valleys, flying at extraordinary speeds, feeding on the insects lifted by the thermal currents that rise off the sun-warmed slopes. In the rivers, brown trout hold position in the current, waiting for insects carried downstream by the flow. The water is cold, even in summer, fed by glacial melt, and the trout are strong, muscular fish adapted to fast-flowing, oxygen-rich streams. On warm, south-facing rock faces, adders bask in the sun. They are the only venomous snake in Switzerland, and they are found from the lowlands to above 2,500 meters, the highest altitude of any snake in Europe. They are shy, rarely seen, and almost never dangerous to humans. Autumn in Switzerland is quieter than in Japan. There is no nationwide color front, no forecasting service tracking the change from north to south. But the season has its own beauty, and in certain places it is extraordinary. The star of Swiss autumn is the European larch. Unlike most conifers, the larch is deciduous. It loses its needles every year. Before it does, they turn a vivid, pure gold. In the Engadin Valley, where larch forests cover the valley floor and the lower slopes, the effect in October is stunning. The trees blaze gold against the dark green of the surrounding spruce and pine, and the contrast, gold against green, set against blue sky and white snow on the peaks above, is one of the finest autumn landscapes in Europe. The larch forests of the Engadin are best seen from the hiking trails above the valley, from the paths around Pontresina, Silva Plana, and the shores of the Engadin lakes. The light at this altitude and time of year is low and warm, and it catches the golden needles in a way that makes the trees seem to glow. In the Jura Mountains, the autumn color is different. Here, the beech forests turn a deep, warm copper bronze. The beech is one of the most beautiful trees in autumn. Its leaves change uniformly, and when the sun is low, the canopy glows. The Jura in October has a quiet, rolling beauty that is entirely different from the drama of the Alps. In the Bernese Oberland, Lake Brienz and Lake Thun are ringed in color, the forested slopes around them turning gold and orange. The turquoise water of Lake Brienz, set against the warm tones of the surrounding forest, creates a combination of color that is hard to believe. On the slopes above Lake Geneva, the Lavaux vineyards, UNESCO-protected terraces that step down to the water, are at their most beautiful. The vine leaves turn gold and red, and the terraces, backed by the Alps across the lake, look like stacked ribbons of color. One of the atmospheric features of Swiss autumn is the föhn, a warm, dry wind that blows from the south over the Alps and down into the northern valleys. The föhn raises temperatures suddenly, clears the skies to an intense blue, and creates a crystalline visibility that makes the mountains look closer than they are. It also causes headaches in a significant proportion of the population, a phenomenon so well known that Swiss weather reports routinely mention it. Below the föhn-cleared skies, the lowlands are often buried in fog. The Swiss plateau can be covered by a thick layer of cloud for days or weeks at a time, while the mountains above float in sunshine. Climbing from the fog into the light, by cable car, by train, or on foot, is one of the great autumn experiences in Switzerland. One moment you are in grey, cold dampness. The next, you are above the clouds, in warm sun, looking down at a white ocean that stretches to the horizon. This is the season of the red deer rut. In the Engadin, in the Swiss National Park, and in valleys across the Alps, stags begin to roar in late September. The sound is extraordinary, a deep bellowing call that echoes off the mountain walls and carries for kilometers. The stags compete for groups of females, and the competition can be fierce. They clash antlers, sometimes violently, and the sound of antler hitting antler rings through the forest. A dominant stag may hold a group of females for only a few days before being challenged and displaced by a rival. Chamois descend from the highest peaks as the first snow falls above, moving to lower, forested slopes where food is more accessible. They will spend the winter here, surviving on whatever grazing they can find beneath the snow. Migrating birds pass through Switzerland in large numbers in autumn. Honey buzzards, red kites, and other raptors ride the thermals south over the Alps, heading for wintering grounds in Africa. At certain passes, the Col de Breteuil in the Valais is one of the most famous. Thousands of birds can be counted in a single day. Red squirrels are busy in the forests, caching nuts and seeds in dozens of hiding places across their territory. They will not hibernate, they remain active all winter. But they depend on these caches to survive the months when food is scarce. Their memory for cache locations is impressive, but not perfect. The nuts they forget will germinate in spring, planting the next generation of trees. Winter in the Swiss Alps is long, cold, and deep. At high altitudes, it can last 6 months or more. Snow begins to fall on the highest peaks as early as September, and by November it has reached the valleys. By December, much of the country above 1,000 meters is buried. The snowfall in Switzerland is not as extreme as in Japan's snow country, but it is substantial. In the mountains, 2 to 5 meters of accumulation is normal. In exceptional years, more. The snow transforms the landscape completely, covering the meadows, weighing down the forests, filling the valleys, and turning the peaks into white, sharp-edged shapes against the winter sky. Zermatt, beneath the Matterhorn, is one of the most dramatic winter settings in the Alps. The village sits at 1,600 meters, and the peaks around it, the Matterhorn, Monte Rosa, the Dent Blanche, tower above, catching the first and last light of the day. The Matterhorn in winter light is a different mountain from its summer self. The rock is darker against the snow, the ridges are sharper, and the clouds that wrap around the summit move fast in the high-altitude wind. In the Bernese Oberland, the valleys of Grindelwald, Lauterbrunnen, and Mürren are buried in snow. Mürren, a car-free village perched on a cliff above the Lauterbrunnen Valley, is accessible only by cable car in winter. From it, the view across to the Eiger, Mönch, and Jungfrau, all in winter condition, white and grey and immense, is one of the most powerful mountain panoramas in the Alps. In the Jura, winter is quieter, gentler snowfall, rolling forested hills in white, and a silence that is different from the silence of the high Alps. The Jura winter is intimate rather than dramatic. Avalanches are a constant threat in the Alps when snow accumulates on steep slopes, particularly after heavy snowfall or a rapid temperature change. It can release without warning. A large avalanche can move at over 300 kilometers per hour, carrying thousands of tons of snow, rock, and ice. Switzerland has one of the most advanced avalanche warning systems in the world, and the Swiss Federal Institute for Snow and Avalanche Research monitors conditions continuously. The waterfalls that were thundering in summer now freeze. In the Lauterbrunnen Valley, some of the 72 waterfalls turn into columns of blue and white ice, vertical ice formations that attract ice climbers from around the world. The frozen falls are beautiful in a stark, sculptural way, all hard edges and pale color against the dark rock. In the high mountains, the glaciers are quieter in winter. The surface freezes hard, the crevasses narrow slightly, and fresh snow covers the grey, dirty ice of the summer ablation zone. The Larch Glacier in the Engadin, approached by a trail from the valley floor, is a popular winter walk. The path leads through a snow-covered landscape to the foot of the glacier, where the ice meets the rock in a chaotic jumble of frozen towers and compressed layers. Winter is the hardest season for the animals of the Alps. The Alpine ibex, those powerful, sure-footed goats that commanded the high ridges in summer, now face their greatest challenge. The meadows they grazed are buried under meters of snow. Food is scarce. The ibex move to steep, south-facing slopes where the sun melts the snow enough to expose grass and lichen. They can be seen perched on narrow ledges, often at seemingly impossible angles, scraping at the thin covering of snow to reach whatever is beneath. Their winter coat is thick and dark, insulating them against temperatures that can drop below -20. Chamois have descended to the forest zone. They move through the deep snow with difficulty. Their legs are short relative to their body, and in fresh, deep powder they can become bogged down. They paw through the snow for dry grass and browse on the twigs of shrubs and young trees. In severe winters, starvation is a real risk. The rock ptarmigan is now in full winter plumage, entirely white, with only a black eye and a black tail tip. Against the snow, it is virtually invisible. It feeds on the buds and shoots of dwarf willows and other alpine plants, which protrude above the snow surface on exposed ridges. In storms, it burrows into the snow for insulation, creating a small chamber where the temperature is significantly warmer than the air outside. The mountain hare also turns white in winter. It is larger and heavier than the stoat, and it survives by feeding on whatever vegetation remains above the snow. Its large furred feet act as snowshoes, distributing its weight across the soft surface. Golden eagles continue to hunt throughout the winter. They are less active than in summer. Cold weather means less thermal activity, which means fewer updrafts to soar on. But they patrol the valleys and slopes, hunting marmots, which are hibernating and occasionally vulnerable if their burrows are disturbed. In the forests, Tengmalm's owl hunts by ear. It can locate a vole moving under 20 centimeters of snow purely by sound. Its facial disc, the round, concave arrangement of feathers around its eyes, acts as a sound-collecting dish, funneling the faintest rustles to its ears, which are asymmetrically placed on its skull for precise three-dimensional hearing. When it detects prey, it drops from its perch and plunges feet first through the snow crust. It is a remarkable hunting technique, and it allows the owl to find food even when the ground is completely covered. Red deer struggle in deep snow. Their long legs help, but in the heaviest conditions, they are reduced to following each other's tracks to conserve energy, creating narrow paths through the drifts. They browse on bark, dry grass, and whatever shoots they can reach. By late winter, many are thin, and the weakest, the old, the young, the sick, may not survive until spring. Winter in the Alps is a test. It strips the landscape to essentials: rock, snow, ice, cold, and the animals that survive it are those that have adapted over thousands of generations to endure it. The ibex on the frozen ridge, the ptarmigan in its snow burrow, the eagle circling in the thin winter air. They have all been doing this for far longer than humans have been watching. Switzerland is a small country, and it is easy to underestimate. It occupies less than 1% of Europe's land area. But within that space, it holds a concentration of natural beauty and ecological diversity that is difficult to match anywhere on the continent.